Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and Governor Healy's March 28th, 2025 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body, this meeting of the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website, townofgb.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so via the link at the top of the agenda posted to the town's website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. All votes are roll call votes. Moving to the first item of business, approving previous minutes. Where are we on minutes? I see that we have 9 meetings that were posted since the end of August that don't have minutes posted.
Really?
Yeah, but I know that doesn't necessarily mean those minutes aren't approved. The last minutes that are posted to the town website are August 27th.
We approved, and I got an email back from the town clerk saying that the September meeting minutes were posted. I can forward you that if you like, September. So I can make a list of that. So our July and our August and September main meeting minutes have been approved by the board and sent to the town clerk for posting. I also sent at the same time meeting minutes for 2 of the subcommittee meetings in August and early September. Subsequent to that, we've had 2 more subcommittee meetings that I haven't sent the meeting minutes in for. I sent to everybody this weekend meeting minutes for the September 16th meeting and for the October 4th community outreach meeting. I hope you got them.
Yes.
So I in my mind, I'm due 2 subcommittee meeting minutes,
Well,
which
check the town website and make sure that everything you've sent in is there.
check it right now.
I will take a motion to approve the September 16th full board minutes and or the October 4th. Wait,
I make such a motion.
okay.
Minutes.
Anybody second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Peter,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
and Nanda, aye. All right. Moving on to reports. Are there any reports that aren't covered under old business on the agenda that need to be made? Hearing none. Moving on to item 3, old business, the CPA application. And I figured I would include the report from the August CPC meeting that I attended on behalf of the trust. That meeting went really well. In particular, there were kind of 2 areas of discussion. One was related to the RFP. I included the draft RFP the draft developer RFP and draft rubric at that point. And there was positive feedback, particularly about the rubric. And there was also questions about what was going to happen on the Rising Ball Field. The members of CPC that were there responded very positively to my report that we had process plans. We don't have a plan beyond that it will be affordable housing, and the outline for the process was well received at that point. And we had some discussion about Prosperity Way and the general need for strong communications, especially from the town, and members of the CPC asked Chris Rimbold to help get press releases out. The general concern being that people in South County are applying and having full access to the opportunities at Prosperity Way. So that's my report from August. Sorry it took me so long to get here and give that to you. This application, if folks will remember, is a two-step process. So the first step is really straightforward. You're indicating you're applying, what you're applying for, and the amount you're applying for. The last 2 years, we have taken an approach that's been a long-term strategy, in my view and my understanding of our discussions as a board, that our long-term strategy is to push and work with the CPC over time to get to a place where the town could actually be diverting all of its affordable housing to the trust, all of its affordable housing funds, CPA funds, to the trust for management, rather than having a dual system that we have right now. So we made some real positive strides last year in that, and the CPC has primarily really just wanted to see a strengthening of the trust capacity as a fairly new body in the town, to be doing governance, to be doing oversight. And I think our work on the ADU pilot and our work on the RFP, that's the kind of thing that demonstrates the capacity the trust has that CPC just isn't in a position to have over time. So the last 2 years, we've applied for the maximum amount that could be spent by this CPC of CPA funds on affordable housing. So a minimum of 10% of the total pot needs to be spent in each of the 3 areas for CPA funds: recreation and the environment, historic preservation, and affordable housing. And then there's I think 5% that is set aside for administrative costs, or something similar. So basically we took, as Chris had available, a rough estimate amount of funds available. We then asked for the max amount, once assuming that a minimum of 10% is spent on historic preservation and another 10% on recreation or the environment. I recommend that we continue to do that. And we continue to grow a collaborative relationship. I don't think we're at the point yet where we will be the recipient of all of the affordable housing funds, but I do think one of the benefits of this, I think there are 2 primary benefits of this approach. One, we are really growing a collaborative relationship with the CPC. And 2, by being a voice that is advocating for affordable housing in an informed and acute way as a priority for the town, I do think that our application has influenced the overall amount of funds spent on affordable housing. And even though we haven't always been the recipient of all of those funds, we are seeing the largest bulk of funds going towards affordable housing. I do expect that we will continue to be in this year, we'll continue to see other projects that are town projects coming before CPC. And I think those will always rank favorably. So that's what I have for you there. Questions, thoughts? The step one characterizes what we will do with those funds as housing stabilization that provides direct support to renters to secure precarious housing situations, 0% down payment loans, accessory dwelling unit, affordable housing development program, and property acquisition as our 5 consistent activities.
Did
Fred,
Joseph has his hand up.
Joe, you want to go?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, maybe we want to be explicit in our application to like actually sort of say like we are asking for like the remainder of unspent affordable housing funds. Like, and I don't know if they would receive that well.
But we're
If we
not
s-
asking for the maximum amount, which we do say directly.
Okay, so well, yeah, I'm just saying if we said explicitly, we are asking that you spend the maximum that you can on affordable housing, and we are saying that we accept the other, just say that we're not trying to be greedy, but our goal is explicitly to maximize affordable housing funds, not necessarily for us.
So are you saying you would actually like us to step away from our strategy of asking them to stop funding other affordable housing and only fund us?
I think implicitly, I'm saying maybe we make the implicit explicit. Like maybe we say, because I think when we went in before asking for the maximum, we knew we weren't going to get the maximum. And I don't know. I don't know if there's some value in just saying, you know, something like a range or something, but also making it explicit that our real goal is for monies to be spent for them to encourage them to spend the maximum on affordable housing in general. 'Cause I guess my last thought is just that like we've said before that we're a funding, not a projects board. Like that we don't want to necessarily run projects ourselves. So sort of like within that process, if there are good affordable housing projects, let's sort of philosophically, don't we sort of do want them to get the money because they are organized in order to do it? You know what I mean?
Just to respond to Joe, I think we do want them to get the money, but the whole point is that we want to funnel it through us so that we have better oversight than the CPA that has lots of other things going on. My other question is
Yeah.
to Ananda, did we have any indication of how large the CPA pot is going to be this year? And because as I recall, we need to put a exact dollar figure in instead of a percentage.
We do have to put an exact dollar figure in. I don't know at this point, but I expect that Chris will have an estimate that he can share.
But I think in general, I think as part of this discussion, I would be in favor of I believe it works out to 75% of the available funds, of the total funds, be available for affordable housing through us.
Bill?
Yeah, I was just thinking that our RFP, the sort of general RFP for developers, is going to cover a lot of things that would otherwise go to the CPC. And so it's sort of a pass through.
Yeah, I mean, So I'd say I'd offer a few things. One, Joe, to your point, the both steps of the application require that I'm present and available to respond and have conversation with them. And so they usually, like, there's an opportunity for me to say that out loud clearly. Generally in grant applications, it's unwise to ask for, to tell people to give money to other people. They're going to do that anyway. And what what I do say in the actual meetings is that we are not there to undermine any of the other applications, and we support, fundamentally we support affordable housing, and we're glad to have all the applications before them. And
Yeah.
then to your point, Bill, I think that we're turning a corner with several members of the CPC, and they talked explicitly in the process last year about giving us a larger chunk this year so they could try out moving in this direction. And the RFP, yeah, it's a pass-through, but I think the key differences that are interesting to the CPC and also to me are, right, that we can be responsive to requests throughout the year. We don't have to be on the same timeline. I mean, right now, while we're working with the size funding we're working with, in the end, we're probably looking for under the RFP, we're probably looking at maybe one, maybe two things we can fund, but that's because we don't have a larger pot right now. So I think we're going in the right direction, and I think we're getting nothing but positive feedback around the overall direction. I think there are members of CPC who will always feel strongly that their job is to look at the details, and they will always want to have that process, but increasingly board members are engaging us. So I think we should continue in the same vein.
Can we ask you to take the lead for the CPA application? And I guess the question is, are you did yeoman work last year, you and your team. Are we able to use that framework armature to build on this year's application?
Yes. Sorry, my dog has to go out. Yeah, and I think for step one, there's very little, it's not a particularly detailed part of the process. And then for step two, we submitted a very robust packet last year. And I think the value in doing that is it allows members of the public and it allows the CPC to see how, like, the construct grant is being managed, or look at the details on the ADU. So yeah, I think it makes sense to use the model we used last year, and I think the new material is primarily around providing an update on the previous year's activities.
Well, please reach out to any one of us if we can be of assistance.
Okay. I think I'll wait till the November meeting to come back to you on if I'd like us to allocate some funds for assistance from Andy. It is really helpful having somebody else helping put together the packet and the submission, but it should be less work this year than last. Anything else on CPA? I have to relocate my agenda. Rising Ball Field. Community updates on the community engagement meetings.
Well, I think I can start, and I'm going to ask Bill to contribute as well. We had some robust meetings. Thank you for the members of the committee who attended. We had two community engagement meetings. We met with Jen Gowie from Rural Health Network, who was a tremendous help to us and is, as a experienced community organizer, was invaluable for helping us to put together and to basically writing the survey that our community engagement ended up being three different parts, two in-person meetings, one in Housatonic on October 4th and one at Berkshire South on October 13th, as well as a survey that's either completed in person on paper or online. And for the Saturday meeting on October 4th, we had about 22 people, I think, something like that. Virtually all, or most of the select board was there. Some of the other community members and several neighbors or people who live along Park Street attended. We had some very engaging conversations. I felt that they were, in general, very positive. I think that there are some understandable concerns and issues, but I think that's the whole point of having the meetings, is to help to survey those meetings. I wrote meeting minutes up for the October 4th meeting, which were distributed to you, so you have that. We will do it after report summarizing the essential comments that we've made. For the October 13th meeting, it wasn't quite as well attended, but there were some different people, including some town employees and we spent a fair amount of time, as well as a couple of neighbors. We spent a fair amount of time talking about whether the project that we're doing with CPA restrictions actually would be available for municipal employees, specifically police and fire employees. And the anecdotal story, of course, is that a couple of members have inquired about Prosperity Way for houses and were told that they didn't qualify based on income. And that may be, so it is an issue. It's an issue to be considered. I think that it's not something that's completely restrictive, but I think it's something that is to be considered. I think
Considered, what do you mean? There's nothing to consider. It's the law.
it is the law. But I think we're building housing for a particular part of the market that the market isn't taking care of itself on that end of the market. And I think that luckily the folks who we spoke to were making more than $150,000 a year and likely could afford a step up from the housing that the price of the housing that would be available there. So,
Just a question about
Yeah.
qualifying. Do you know, Fred, what is Habitat using 80% or 100% of AMI?
Habitat has a variety of different source levels for the housing that they're building, including some, depending upon the funding sources that they're accessing.
Okay.
Primarily for the first phase, it's 80 and 100. There is some 100% and there is some 80% for the first part of the
Okay.
project. The subsequent projects will have more funding that is tied to a different AMI.
May I ask you a question, Fred?
Sure.
So at the community meeting I attended, surveys were filled out.
We're going to
Um,
get to that. We're
Okay.
not, the survey is still open on our
Yes.
website. Bill, can you talk about the survey?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten that many surveys online. I don't know how many Jen has collected as paper surveys. Some people filled out the paper surveys right there at the meeting. But the survey responses generally correspond to concerns that were raised during the meeting. Almost everybody that responded lived or worked in the area. They were neighbors or something like that. Survey said all respondents want a mix of both rental and home ownership options, with 67% wanting mixed and 33% strictly home ownership. So
I just on a process point, this is not, what we're doing right now is not the final report out from this process.
No, we're just making a report.
As-
We're
I'm
still,
just filling
the
you in on,
survey's still open.
yeah, this
So
is,
I just want to clarify is as anybody who may be listening now or later,
yeah,
I just want to clarify that these percentages are of a survey that is not done being administered.
that's right. I'm just bringing you up to date on where we're at so far.
Great.
Most people preferred a mix of townhouse apartments, those 45%, and individual freestanding homes, 36%. So that was interesting. Mixed
why don't-
population, from old people, families, single people. 46% wanted a mixed population, not just, young families or seniors or disabled. Everybody wants a mix, it seems.
Can I pause you just on that point, or should I wait till you go through the survey? I'll circle back.
The only question that everybody agreed 100% on was that local people should be given priority. And that will have an impact on how the project gets funded.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, keep going.
That's about it. Then there were some comments. This one says, design of single-family homes as similar as possible to homes in the neighborhood. Ensuring to leave the natural blockage from neighbors, the trees around the site. That was mentioned a lot. Incorporating sidewalks. And the good news for that is, I think that's under consideration by the town, is putting sidewalks in. Somebody wanted bungalows with front porches and a shared walkway with green space. Car parking in the rear. Tiny houses, a lot of mention of tiny houses. That's about it.
Peter?
It's just a few questions. So, once we've heard from the community and the survey's done, and we've, are we going to be issuing a report based on, what are next steps? So once we've heard from the community, what is what are we anticipating doing with the input that we've received? How is that going to drive this process?
Well, I was thinking that the input would sort of drive the development of the RFP. We'd want to take many of these concerns into consideration to create the RFP.
Right, okay.
And then we'd have another meeting, community input meeting, once the RFP is completed, I would think.
I have one question and then I'll go to you. So where are the surveys being circulated?
Let's see, they were at the libraries, the town hall,
They're all hard copy?
hard copy, but there's also an online survey.
And where's that being circulated?
Circulated. Well, it's not circulating, it's online. I mean, it's on our website.
It,
Our website. See, I don't think that's not going to gather any data. So I'd love to see a plan to post that on the Great Barrington Community Board to
Yeah,
ask
we
the
have already done that, and I'm going to continue that.
the town to send it out in their regular whatevers.
Yes.
And
Eileen Mooney has sent it out.
great. And then also I'm thinking about what about asking the chamber and a few of the key employers like Fairview Hospital if they would circulate it among their employees.
Sure.
As I do think it's important that we're getting data, like it's important that we have the neighborhood data, and then it's important we have data beyond the neighborhood data.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need data from people who are looking for housing, which is good that we got from some of the municipal employees.
Mhm.
And again, thinking about like people who are listening online or who may watch this in the future, just a recap, Community Preservation Act funds are tied to area median income, and you cannot use them for affordable housing over 100% of area median income. And I'm going to go out on a limb and try and remember my statistics college class, but if I recall correctly, a median is how you find the middle when you take out the far out outliers and then you run an average. So we're really talking about the median income is when you look at the total spread of income in the area, what falls in the middle. So we can use these funds for people who make up to that middle marker, and then that is calculated annually, and it's calculated by family size. And you can look it up. So it's what, 79,000 for an individual, for two people or an individual.
Individual, I think, right now.
Well, it goes a little bit up
And-
for people.
And median, you were a little off in the calculation of median. It does not average anything. It is the point at which half of the houses are cost less and half cost more, or half of the people
It's
make less than that and half cost more.
about the cost, it's about the income,
Right.
but it's the middle point. It's
The middle point, not an average, yes.
so we can go up to that middle point that is calculated each year. And the size of the household is the total number of people. So two people can be in two adults, but it could also be one adult and a child, etc. And it's grown year to year quite a bit for the last 5 years. So it's actually fairly high. And it is true that there are people who deserve housing in the community they work in that their household size might mean that they make over the limit for CPA funds. So I just wanted to recap that. Fred, I think you had your hand up next.
Well, I did, and you made most of the points, but basically what I want to say is I think if we to address Peter's point about the process and to level in with yours, to add it into yours, I think that we need to have a greater community, that the community needs to be, we need to have more community data and community to broaden it, in other words. I think if we close out the survey in and take a look at it and write a report, we may only have a partial snapshot at that point. And we may at that point decide to gather more data from the community. So I don't know if this survey is going to be the end product that that will end this first phase, or whether just be something that will be the basis of deciding what to go forward with. I would like to see a broader reach uh, in the surveys so that they have more validity.
Can that happen and a report come to the November meeting?
A report can come to the November meeting, but I'm not sure that that's going to have as much broad reach as perhaps I hoped.
Well, what do you want to do about that?
I'd like to come to the November meeting and decide if we want to reopen a survey or reconstruct a survey for a different.
Peter?
Well, I want, you should finish this conversation. I wanted to discuss one of the comments about local preference.
So Fred, my thought is that I don't want a whole month to pass for us to decide to get more information. I'm asking, can we get more information and present that in a month?
I think we can.
Bill and Jen have been more involved. I think, we can reach out to Jen and ask her about broadening our reach, or at least seeing if it's more effective.
Bill, do you ever get coffee at Holly's?
No,
I
That you're-
do.
Peter, you do great. Talk to Holly. Holly's a great cheerleader. I bet Holly would be willing to help get the word out about the surveys, even if it's just a social media post.
And let me plug not only her coffee, but the scones.
And her wonderful personality.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't suggesting.
All right, Peter, do you want to move us to where?
Just on someone had a comment about local preference, and we hear that quite a lot. And I wonder, as this, there are certain things that people will ask for that are not actually feasible or legally possible. So, and also a mix of ages. When you're analyzing a home purchaser, you're not permitted to consider the age of the occupants. You don't get to build a neighborhood that way. So I wonder legally, I wonder at some point, unless you're building a senior community, but that's not what we're trying to do here. So when we have this survey and we have these responses and we put something together, are we intending to address certain asks that aren't feasible, that we're going to build an RFP, and those things that can't be done, we just won't address to the community.
I mean,
that's right.
I would see it as our responsibility in that process to look at each of those items.
Yeah.
And use our public meeting as a place to address any limitations on feasibility that exist. So, like taking local, I think, there's a reasonable argument to be made that Great Barrington tax dollars should prioritize housing for people, right, who work in and around Great Barrington, who grew up here, whatever catch-all somebody's thinking of. And the primary limitation to doing that is whether or not a project is receiving funding that disallows that.
Right.
And that, so really wading into that as an issue in the process of thinking about the RFP, I think gives us a really good place to think through those things and think through, like, would we place limitations on what other kinds of funding could be brought in order to meet this community priority. So
Egremont has a project going on right now in order to make sure it was all Egremont employees. They only used Egremont, they used private funds.
Yeah.
And similarly in New Marlborough, the construct has some units that are private funds.
Yeah.
As soon as I think as soon as you start mixing town funds and state funds, it changes the equation. I would like to throw in, and I think the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Maybe I'll save this for trustee speak. I have something else to say on this topic.
Okay, Joe.
Oh, I just wanted to point out that so town funds, you can make an argument. CPA funds, my understanding of CPA is that it's like, we pay in a certain amount from our property tax. It goes into the general fund and then it comes sloshing back from Boston, right? And I think we are net recipients. So, we get more money from Boston than Boston gets from us. So just to clarify, like, when we're talking about CPA funds, like, it's, you can't really say that it's our money explicitly. So,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So closing out this agenda item, next steps are, it sounds like Bill and Jen are gonna do a push on surveys.
Yeah.
Pete's gonna see if he can get the local coffee shop assisting. And the subcommittee will come back with a report in November. And at that point, we will hopefully be able to start moving forward on what we do with that information, or like planning what we'll do with that information.
Sure.
The next item on the agenda is the developer RFP. Peter and I did receive that back from town council with minor edits. I went through and dealt with them. I've been in communication with the chair of CPC, Karen Smith, and also Chris Rembold. The key thing we want to do is not, we want to avoid overlapping with the CPA process. And so after speaking with both of them and really primarily considering the town's staffing capacity around supporting 2 RFPs, we will hold our RFP basically at Chris's request until CPC process is done. And at that point, Chris will no longer be the acting town manager, and hopefully his schedule will become a little bit more reasonable. He actually had reached out to Fred and I before this meeting saying he was sorry he couldn't come tonight, and he's looking forward to being able to join us when his schedule resumes something normal. So I think, we're probably looking at January at the earliest. Fred?
Can you refresh my memory? Are we going to keep the RFP open at a rolling basis until June 30th, or are we going to put a specific
It's written to
date?
be open on a rolling basis. Of course, if all of the funds are spent down in the first cycle, then it'll close
So until open
until the funds are
until the
spent.
end of the fiscal year, I assume.
Yeah, it's open until the funds are expended or the end of the fiscal year, whichever one comes first.
Fine.
Anything else on the RFP?
Did we put a limit on grant size, or is that something that's just a consideration?
I don't think there's a limit on grant size.
Okay. If only just to leverage our limited resources, I mean, I know we have more than we've had in the past as we're administering the town's affordable housing money, but it's construction. The money everything's expensive. And what I'm saying is that if we start giving out $300,000 grant, not that we're going to do that, but
budget that much, so we won't do that. I mean, I don't recommend we change it. We went through.
I just don't remember, that's all.
Yeah.
And I notice you've shared some things, and I have a copy of it, and I will refresh my memory before the next meeting.
Okay. Moving on to the ADU, give ourselves some space for discussion on this. So we have combined from previously encumbered funds and the new funds we've set aside, we have 100,000 that we plan to make available for ADU applications. A couple of things I just wanted to refresh our memories to set up the discussion, and then I'll open the floor. So that first part was just the budget. The second part was I shared the rubric around, just so that we would be operating from a refreshed and shared understanding. But the core areas are project viability, living space, location, the resident landlord's financial need, cost effectiveness, and then the overall impact, meaning the extent to which the application demonstrates a likelihood to provide secure housing for the most people possible. And that includes considering if the stabilization it can provide to the landlord's family as well as the tenants of the ADU. So I saw in the minutes that Fred, you had shared some thoughts last month. The other thing for us to just be aware of is that both Construct and the town are currently limited in their staffing capacity. Construct is in the process of a search for an executive director, and obviously we're waiting for a town manager. So just that we, on both sides where we partner and who we rely on to do this process, we don't have the capacity we had the last time around. So I thought that I would open up the floor, and Fred, rather than you speaking first, we'd hear from other people since we have your thoughts in the minutes. And we will come back to you, but you can do it. Would somebody else like to start the discussion? No. Interesting. So Fred is proposing that we do something different.
I would, well, what I was going to say was I had a discussion with Chris Rembold about the current pilot project that we had, and I don't know if that's germane to talking about at this juncture or not.
Well, I mean, we did a debrief in the spring. So I think that's what we should be referencing in our decision making. And if there's something
Okay.
wildly new, sure, bring it up. But I don't think that should be the main thing. Like we had Jane come, we talked it through, we debriefed.
Well, the one thing I'll add is that the project has been very successful, is nearing completion, and the qualified tenant is a municipal employee, a full-time municipal employee who qualified
It's a success.
resident income. Yes, it's very successful. So, you know, that what we said we would do actually worked out this way.
Yeah.
So.
So Fred, the summary of your points, as I understood it, was you're basically asking us to consider changing the structure of the grants from the first round. What we did was we said we have 100,000 or we have 150,000 available, and no grant will be made over 100,000, and then wanted to see what the applications were. You are wanting to change the structure of the grants to try to get at a different kind of application that might be more of a modification of an existing structure. I would propose, rather than doing that through the limit or the amount, doing that through like the rubric, like giving a higher score to a modification, because I'm hesitant to narrowing the applicant pool.
No,
Get so many, but if we want to weight it differently, I'm oh, I'm curious about that.
That would be fine. I think that would meet the goals that I'm expressing. And I think the bill had done extensive work in the very beginning and came to the conclusion, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, that not enough money would not be an a small grant would not be enough to induce somebody to build an ADU. I was frustrated personally that Construct had the money to award one major grant and one smaller grant, but chose not to award the other when I believe anecdotally that there were applicants who
Weren't viable. They weren't even close to viable applicants. Like I I saw all of the rankings that each application got, and they were too low to award or incomplete.
well, I think we need to talk about the process of what we're doing there. I also received a call and spoke with Brett Roberts from Berkshire Regional Planning, who offered to basically administer the ADU project, including construction supervision. They would take a fee, but there is a proposal.
But we have a partner doing that.
But
And-
you just told us that they don't have, well,
I mean, we've already, like, Fred,
they were too secretive. They haven't even told us anything. They
they
never did a written report. I really don't even know what happened. We did this ADU pilot program to gain knowledge.
happened. Fred, we had a full debrief. Bill and I received constant updates. We agreed that the point of working with them was to not review the individual applications. That the individual applications would not be public.
I think there was a misunderstanding on my part, and I think it's wholly on my part of what Construct's role was to be. You know, we gave them a very, very small fee to review applications and apply the rubric, and they did that. And I
And
think
some verification for the life of the project.
and they did that. My frustration was with the lack of helping the incomplete applicants. And as a result, there was a bias towards, I'll just say, professional builders versus homeowners.
Well, we put that bias in. Our number one criteria is that it is a viable project. And what we talked about in the debrief in the spring was that we thought it would strengthen the process if we could add workshops before, or like to have part of the RFP process include some public workshops about how to make a proposal. I think, you know, if I recall, I'd have to go back and look at the minutes, but I think we also talked about like having a contractor participate in a public workshop in that way. But the truth is, like, there's no version where we can give away money to somebody who hasn't submitted a budget.
Right.
There's no version where we can give away money to somebody who doesn't have some level of a plan for the construction, for what is being constructed. And I do think that's a complex piece of this particular project, right? And it's worth our time and thoughts, and like, how could we help build that bridge for people who are not coming to the table with a lot of experience in that area? And there just isn't a version of things where we can give away money that doesn't have those two things.
You know, great points. You're exactly right. I had a vision, and it's probably unrealistic, of providing incentives to help um, homeowners who are struggling to meet their rent to have an income stream from an ADU.
I had that vision. That's why I worked on this. I think, if we really want to try and close the gap that we uncover, I mean, the point of the pilot was to learn things, right? So if
Yes.
we really want to close the gap that we uncovered, then maybe what we should be doing is talking about like what funding would we put into making that part of planning accessible? Like what ideas are there for that?
Does it make any sense to look at the unsuccessful applicants and see why they were unsuccessful? Did they have a bad idea, a bad plan? Were they incomplete? Were they, what are the things that there? I think the other part that's the essence of my comment is and it may be wishful thinking, is that because our resources are so limited, I was hopeful that a grant less than we made for the pilot program would be enough to leverage other monies. In other words, I don't want to give $100,000, $200,000 to each ADU. In the end of the day, we've built one or two ADUs. I'm hopeful that 50,000 would be enough.
Well, I don't think that, like, I don't think we're gonna get that. Like, I think that sometimes maybe, like it's gonna be very dependent, and that's why I don't think we can narrow
Right.
the application as a whole. Joe, go ahead.
I just, I, I just wanted to say, I think I've just said it in the past, but like, I would support 50,000. That's all.
The maximum.
I mean,
Yeah, I just, I mean, I think this is like a long time ago, but I do feel like everything gets a, I mean, it's great that we have the rubric, but I feel like the rubric could be like a little bit less. I feel like the rubric is just like, I don't know. I feel like the rubric would be like the more of the minimum requirement for doing something rather than like a sorting mechanism. So like I feel like if we had the rubric, then we could just do a first come, first serve and just be like,
no,
no, that's
literally,
not, but no, I mean,
like the applications have to be ranked by the rubric.
yeah, so all I am saying is that I would support a simpler rubric that just focused on feasibility and did 50,000. But I think that's always been my position. That's all. Just because I think it's simpler. I just think it's simpler all around to do it.
And Nando, you make great points, and I think that we should go ahead with the rubric that we have. I think that we need to have a discussion with Construct about their capacity if they're going to be our partner on this.
Yeah. I mean, and also capacity issues are temporary, right? Like I bring that up to be like, we can't do this in November. But I do think, like, I think that Construct, um, one of the potential benefits of collaborating with Construct is that they do work with a lot of builders locally. And I think that they're a partner that does have expertise around how to build that kind of bridge process. They might have they might bring in a new executive director who's like, we can't take on something this small. So that's a possibility too. But Fred, I think Bill and I could go back, it's probably even just in our email, Bill,
Mhm.
and look at what information we have on the other applicants. My memory is just that the scores were across the board, like really low, and I think at least 2 of the applications were incomplete in ways that they just couldn't move forward at all.
So when they got an incomplete application, did they get back to the applicant and say, you left out information, we need this information? Or they just take it and say, oh, this is no good.
That was my understanding, and I think that it would be wise of us to go back and look at that meeting. We had to debrief this, and because I think we asked Jane some of these questions.
Yeah.
And
that's recorded somewhere, right? Yes.
I believe it's posted on our website even, Bill.
Oh, yeah, it probably is.
Um,
A lot of our earlier meetings got lost when the town switched its website over. I'm still trying to figure that out, but
yeah, I mean, I think we did this in maybe March or April.
oh yeah, those are still around.
So, I mean, in terms of moving this forward, it seems like
Well, I haven't anyway.
it seems like the key issue is what's the best way to expand the possibility for people with smaller projects to apply? And we're kind of talking about 2 ways to approach that. One is in the structure of the program itself, and the other is there something we could offer that increases people's ability to submit a strong application?
Well, what if we had a local contractor of some kind that we could pay a stipend or something to sit down with someone and say, this is approximately how much it's going to cost, where's the money going to come from? Someone that has some experience in that kind of work, to just sit down with them, a little bit more of a consult than maybe Construct was able to do, and see if they, most people have no idea how to build something. So
Well,
to have someone with some knowledge sit down with them and say, this is going to work or it's not going to work, and this is what you need to do and how much money it's going to cost.
yeah. I'm also wondering if you don't kind of take a page out of the CPC's book and have a step 1 and a step 2 process. And the step 1 process is actually just an application to access that consult, so that we can kind of narrow the field on the consult.
Yeah, that's good.
And then that, Joe, could really be as straightforward as you're thinking about. And then from the consult, that makes you eligible for step 2. Well, let's I'm just looking at the time. I think that this probably needs a little bit more workshopping, and then we need to figure out how to make something move on whatever direction we decide to do. Do we want to come back to this in November? And do we have, I guess the things to do between then and between now and then would be, Bill, for you and I to go back to what we have about the other applicants, for folks to review the debrief meeting, and I'll try to find out where Construct is in their process.
Okay.
Like when we'll have a partner we can talk to, or, it may be that there's somebody in a role, like maybe Hillary is somebody I could talk to at Construct now, who would know if there's somebody in a role that we could be talking to now. Um, and then come back to this idea. Because it would be ideal if, if we could be collaborating with Construct on their kind of established network of contractors rather than having to build that out ourselves.
Sure.
All right. Fred, I apologize. I got a little loud with you.
I think it was me.
Um,
It didn't come through my speakers.
all right.
And well, I'll say
Moving to new business, issues and advocacy. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Peter, under this area is, should we be returning to the tax exemption question?
I had two items for trustee speak. That was one of them.
Well,
So
look, under issues and advocacy, because it's an issue that we might advocate on.
and my other issue is, I'll save the other one for trustee speak. But yes, so it was December of last year. What I learned were a few things. One, you recall that Chris's plate became well, okay. The new town manager starts on November 3rd, so that issue will resolve. And then the assessor who had to analyze this, as well as something else, sort of put it on the edge of his desk, and he is no longer the assessor. So essentially, there's a new administration, and I was going to ask a trustee speak whether we could put on the agenda or on a next agenda, or whether or not we can revive this effort. I think everyone realizes that the tax implication of it is not as significant enough to drive someone to a decision to do an ADU. ADUs are very expensive. I support more rather than fewer dollars, but I do think that, as well as any financial help we can give, will help the process. So yes, I would like to revive that somewhat dormant issue.
Would you send the members of the committee
The
what
memoranda, sure.
Yeah. Miranda, so that when we come back to it next month, we can refresh our memories on what we recommended? And also, was it the case that the select board wasn't necessarily against it? It just was they would want more data before they made a decision.
Right. They asked it to be processed through the town, and administrators include and have the assessor weigh in. And I'll just say the ball got dropped. I'm not able to point fingers, and I don't think this is a finger pointing issue anyway. It's simply it didn't happen. It's an issue that I think should be brought up again. Maybe the new town manager will want to seize and run with it. It's hard to know.
Yeah. And what's the timeline look like? Like at the end, we're basically working backwards from May, right?
Right.
And
Uh,
so this with the select board would probably need to take it up in January, February.
Yeah.
They pay into budget season.
Hold on a second. Yes, right. So it needs to be resolved through budget season. And there needs and there needs to be sort of a determination that the way we proposed it, I think we ended up at 100,000, but I'll have to look back at the memo. That up to 100,000 in this tax relief could be available. But that's a political question. But yes, it needs to be, if it's going to happen, it needs to be part of a budget where there'd be some expectation that there'd be some set aside. And that was also something I got back from Chris last spring, which is, as every year, was a very difficult budget season, and asking for this slice of the pie, given everything else and the bridge at the time, it wasn't viable.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. I just was trying to get a sense of that. It sounds like the assessor piece actually would need to happen fairly quickly in the scheme of town things in order for the select board to have the information.
The assessor needs to go back to the select board to say, this is viable. We have the capability of analyzing these properties and doing this math, and it actually is simple. And there are no impediments from my office.
Got it. All right. Other issues or advocacy.
Can I just say one thing? I'll send the memorandum out. I should just want to say I have a business trip at our next meeting as well, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to break away from that meeting. So if I'm not here, it's not because I didn't want to be.
Thank you. Bill? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, so the other thing I was hoping we could advocate for would be the residential exemption. Because I think that will help keep a lot of people in homes.
Um,
Talk about the Michael Wise residential exemption.
Exactly.
The Wise, I think, can we refer to it as the Wise exemption?
I think so, yes. That's better than a big beautiful exemption.
Can you just refresh our memory?
Basically, you sort of pick a point at which people below a certain level would pay less taxes. People above a certain income would pay more taxes.
And
Not
second
income,
homeowners, because
second homeowners, yes. Well, second homeowners would pay more taxes right off the bat.
so
But people whose houses are like 700,000 or above would it goes up incrementally.
if you
Goes down.
put Michael Wise into the Berkshire Edge, he's written eloquently on this.
so one thing I want to say is that there's a reason it's called a residential tax exemption. And I think there's value in us learning how to talk about the details in a way that retains that what the function is actually exempting full-time residents, with the exception of a small cluster, from a higher tax rate. Because I hear people talk about that it's a second tax, and
No,
I think
it's a progressive tax.
I think it's because it takes a lot of details to talk about it that the messaging gets confusing. So I'm wondering if it might be like, that's another thing that's going to be on the same timeline in terms of the town calendar.
It's not actually. The select board makes tax determinations. Bill will
Right.
recall this it's not a town meeting issue. It's a select board issue in September, sometimes early October, when they set when they set the rate, and they make these determinations. It's a political question, and I'm told that the select board, or at least the chair of the select board, is not in favor of it.
I think that Steve has been public about not being in favor of it at the outset, but he's willing to listen.
Yes,
Um,
but it is a select board decision, not a town meeting decision.
Great, that's really clarifying. So I'm wondering if a good thing to do with that is to maybe not November, maybe our December meeting, set aside 45 minutes and ask Michael Wise if he would come and present it to us, because if we are going to advocate for that as a policy, I think it would behoove us to understand it.
Would you be interested in hearing the adverse? Chip Elitzer, who's also eloquently written about it on the Berkshire Edge, has the contrary view. Would it be useful to have a pro and con discussion? I'm just asking because I love cage matches.
For me, initially, it would be useful I just want to understand
Right.
the mechanics, and then the process I would propose is that once we feel like we understand the mechanics, then let's ask ourselves, what else do we need to know to make a determination of whether or not we're going to advocate for this?
Yeah, I think Michael could come in and just explain how the whole thing works. Much better than I can.
And he has the charts based on available tax information from the state as to where the line can be drawn. The line itself is also a
flexible.
political question. This came up in connection with the funding of the high school. Had this been in place, it would have there was a line at which there would have been no tax implication for the paying off of the high school for like 85% of the town.
That's right.
And it also, holding a agenda item with ample time to just ask questions and understand what the proposal is could also be just valuable for other community members. We could structure that in a way that allowed attendees to ask questions. But that meeting itself isn't pro or con, it's just about understanding, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Is there somebody who'd like to reach out to Michael?
I would be happy to. I've worked with Michael on this topic.
Great. And we'll look at the December meeting, but if it doesn't work for him, we can always do it in January.
Do you recall the date of the December meeting?
Third Tuesday.
I can look on my fancy phone calendar. That would be the 16th, which
Okay.
isn't bad, but it is Hanukkah times though. Anything else under issues and advocacy before we move to trustee speak?
It's crosses the line, but I think, we need to look at some strategic. At some point, we need to review some of our programs and see if there are other ways that we can do things that we've batted around in the past, either educational ideas or other kinds of surveys. But I think that it's still too ethereal to even put up.
Okay. Trustee speak.
I've got at least 3.
All right, we'll go Peter and then Fred and anybody else after that.
I think that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund should have a role in consideration of designation of Great Barrington as a seasonal community. The window for comment on the current law is the 31st. The planning board is going to be voting on Thursday, asking that the law be expanded to include as municipal employees, people, first responders from the ambulance squad. But so that's interesting. I proposed to the select board that there be a working group of interested committee members or what have you to put together. It's a relatively lengthy process to get designated. Towns that have 40% or greater second homeowner population automatically qualify. We're only at 12%, but there are other indicia of towns that we meet, many of the other indicia, which are, I'm not going to go through it now, but I think that our goals as a housing organization and that designation are aligned, and I think I would like to propose and have consider why we should support that designation. That's my speak.
What's the timeline on doing that?
There is no timeline yet. The public, so for the governor is setting up or the housing secretary is setting up a process, which is still just now for comment. It's perceived that first quarter of 26, there'll be in place a process where towns can make applications. So it isn't yet, but and what the application actually looks like hasn't been formulated. So this is just coming down the pike.
Got it. Fred, for next month's agenda, can we add, under issues and advocacy, we have 3 items, and can that be the third?
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Add items.
I may be able to, I may not be able to participate, but I'll send you information if I can't.
And at least it gets it onto our agenda so that we don't forget about it.
Okay.
Fred, citizen speak. Sorry, trustee speak.
I have a few things to talk about. I'll try to get through this as easily as possible. Ananda and I, as co-chairs, both received a email from some of the staff at Construct asking us to visit and talk about the rental assistance program.
Habitat?
I'm sorry, Construct.
Oh, okay. I don't think I got that. I did get the email from Habitat about a quote.
Yes, well, that's so basically we have several programs. The rental assistance program was much more active during the pandemic and the fallout thereafter. But we have money that's been allocated to Construct, who administered our program. They would like to have a conversation about reviewing that because they haven't made any awards based on the funding that we've allocated to them in several funding cycles now. So that's one issue that's out there, is revise that program. The second one is I did send, just got this afternoon, Habitat for Humanity of Central Berkshire has been asked to celebrate, or it will be celebrating October 31st as Jimmy and Rosalind Carter Build Day, and featuring the 20 homes on Prosperity Way with some special build and special events happening. They also have been chosen to be part of a national habitat program featuring housing in rural areas, and they are featuring Prosperity Way as part of that project. So that's going to happen between now and our next meeting. There is a work crew that works there every Friday, and for this one, there's a special women build teams that will be coming and working and putting siding up and building decks that day. My next item is I just want to say something about some of the public meetings. The last September meeting there were some members of the public who made some statements that were not that were more personal than I should have allowed as chair, and I'm sorry that that was allowed to go forward. I've in general been very impressed that everybody's been very positive, on the same page, committed to working together. But once in a while, I think we forget that just because we don't know something doesn't mean somebody lied to you, or some other personal comments. And I will wrap it up there. Thank you.
Any other trustees speak?
Just one thing. It seems to me there is some naturally occurring affordable housing coming onto the market soon. And I'm wondering if that's something we should look into as a group, as a committee.
What is naturally occurring? What does that mean?
Well, it's existing affordable rental units right now. And it's going up for sale, if it's not already up for sale.
I think it is.
There's at least 2 that I know of.
Are you suggesting purchase?
Or helping someone purchase or provide some assistance for whatever upgrades need to be done to the building, something like that.
Well, it sounds like an excellent reason somebody could apply to our developer RFP
There you
program.
go.
And yeah. Letting people know that that is coming down the pike.
Okay.
I think that I think that between now and November, I can probably get a sense from Chris of where we want to release the RFP so that then we can actually start talking about something a little bit more concrete than not now, but soon. Anybody else? Okay, media speak. Citizen speak. All right, and that concludes our meeting. Hearing no objections, we are adjourned.
You will.